Hi, my name is Joy Gharoro-Akpojotor. My film is called Dreamers and it's playing in Panorama.
When we are both out, I will take you on a proper date.
But what if it is I that wants to take you out?
Where?
Well, first it will have to be daytime so that I can see your beautiful face. Oh, I know this nice Vietnamese restaurant in Deptford. Mm-hmm. They also do karaoke.
I like karaoke.
Same.
Hello and welcome to the 39th Teddy Award. My name is Jan-Felix Wuttig and today I'm here with Joy Gharoro-Akpojotor to talk about her film Dreamers. Joy, thank you so much for taking the time and being here with us.
Thank you.
Dreamers is a very beautiful and very moving film about Isio, who arrives at a deportation center and gets to know Farah, who becomes her friend and her lover in the time. And could you maybe explain a little how the idea for the film came to you?
So I've also been an asylum seeker myself, and for me, I wanted to make a film that sort of expressed my experience and the things that I felt. And we went through many iterations of what the film is and what it could be. But what we kept on coming back to was the love between these two people. And for me, it was always from about a woman who, through love, finds herself, finds her voice, learns to love herself and choose herself. Because I think it's about empowerment, ultimately. You know, it's freedom of mind, I guess, is the idea. Yeah. And so I wanted to make a film that allowed love to shine through consistently. And so we came to, you know, it being a love story. I mean, there was a version where Farah was dead. And we began the film with her already dead, and it was like this ghost love story. And we kept on talking about, oh, we want more of that, more of that. Yeah. So it sort of made sense to just make her alive again. Yeah. So what we did. I
hope you. I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Because I think it was such a. There's something that is a beauty in seeing love in places that we don't normally get to see love, and that was the idea. And having these two women, watch them fall in love, and the hope of them being together, and the dreams of what they could have on the outside. Those were the things that I also thought about when I was going through my experience of the hope of the life I could have. Yes. And so in doing that, it was, how can we make a film that gives the audience the same feeling of, look at the things that are possible, and the things that they could have if they weren't in this situation. And so we focus on the love. We don't really talk about the immigration aspect of it because it's there. We know it exists. We know what it is. But what we don't talk enough about are the individuals and the people in those situations. So that was how it ended up at it being more of a love story. Yeah.
Were there specific experience that you had that you felt that absolutely needed to be in the film, like specific scenes?
Yeah, I mean, when she's having an interview with her caseworker, that is almost verbatim. Yeah. I mean, it was longer, but we cut it shorter. But, you know, the things said are the same things that were said to me. So when he says to her, like, how do I know you're gay? The exact same thing happened to me. When he's asking her those questions and he's quite intense and she's having to explain, like, you know, it's illegal to be gay in Nigeria. Like, what kind of a question is that? But that also happened to me. So, like, as much as possible, I didn't want all of my experiences to be in there. It was very much about these characters and a mixture of other people's experiences, I guess, because I wasn't detained when I went through the system. But I think the character of Isio, that kind of learning who you are, learning what your voice is and overcoming your fears, I think that is definitely something that I had to go through. And I think actually universally all of us go through that sort of, who are we and how do we find ourselves and how do we learn to trust ourselves and our voice and how do we learn to empower ourselves? I think that's something that I think is quite universal.
Yeah.
And I guess it was another way of reminding people about the individualism of what it means to be an immigrant, but also how we are all the same.
Yeah.
And this idea that people, that they're over there and we're over here, actually we're same people, same struggles.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the intention around it. But yeah, there's not too much of me, but there's enough of me, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I described the film like sort of coming in as moving and beautiful, and it is, but it's also quite, I felt it was quite infuriating at times, you know?
That's good.
Specifically that kind of conversation that is just, I don't know. Much of the power of the film, I felt, comes from the chemistry of your main actresses, Ronke and Anne. How did you work with them to establish that kind of trust? Because it's very natural, it's incredible on the screen.
It's great. I think, so the process we went through was, you know, through rehearsals, we spent a few days creating who these characters are. Like, I have an idea in my head, but I also think it's important to give space for actors to bring their own ideas. So with all four leads, we spent, I think it was 2 days just talking about who these people are and who we think they are before they came into the space and who they will be when they leave. And we spoke about, you know, if the characters of Isio and Farah will actually be together if they were never even in this space, because they are quite different people. And then we talked about the kind of love they have in the space. So I think all of these things allowed them to be able to pull on different memories or different experiences that bring them together. And then we also work closely with the intimacy coordinator as well. And during that process, a lot of it was about finding the trust and about finding what their relationship is. And, you know, I think music also plays a key role for me as well. So we also had like, what is their song? What is like the song that they both love, that, you know, and during rehearsals for the Dream House, we had a particular song for them that we played because that was what we agreed was their love song. And so I think all these different things that you do help them to find that trust and that chemistry, and also helps them to find their relationship and helps them to understand why they need each other. Like for me, in my mind, if they never met in here and if they met outside, they would never be together. It's like they're two very different people. But like Farah is who Isio wants to be, and Isio is who Farah needs in order for her to sort of like find her own tenderness. So when placed together, they give each other something. So that's why by the end of the film, I always say Isio becomes Farah 2.0, because that's who she needed to be to become herself. And Farah brought that out of her. So I think it's that sort of like finding in other people what you need in yourself sometimes brings you together. I think that's why the chemistry works.
Also touching on that, the sort of dream house sequence is very beautiful because it takes you to another place, and obviously that's sort of what the film for me was about, that you sort of within that very gray and very harsh environment you set yourself free to go someplace else. You touched on that. One of the quotes that really moved me in watching the film was, I don't know if I can do it verbatim, but nice people never do what's right for them. And that was sort of for me symbolic in the development of Isio. Could you explain how she sort of developed in certain stages?
Yeah, I mean, I think that nice people don't do what's right for them. It's probably because that's me as well.
I also felt myself a little bit
I was
in
like,
that
I
quote.
don't do what's right for me. Sometimes I'm too nice. But again, is that I would say this character is really sort of it comes from me because I think I was always somebody who believed that you've got to be the good immigrant. You've got to like play by the rules and if I do this, I will get this. If I do that, I will get this. And you suddenly, when you then end up in the system, you kind of realize it doesn't care whether you were good or bad. I mean, to an extent it does, but ultimately it's a numbers game, you know? I remember when I was going through my experience, I think my lawyer said she was preparing for an appeal because she was like 95% of cases are told no and only 5% go through.
Yeah.
And it was just a matter of fact, that's just what it is. It's not about you as a person. So I think when you begin to understand, I guess, how systems operate and how you're clogging this machine, and I think you have to then begin to think about, okay, how can I navigate the space that I'm in?
Yeah.
So I think Isio's journey is one of which she comes in believing I've got to do the right thing, but by doing the right thing, it'll be fine. But that's not what's happening. You know, she tells her story, she's honest about her story, but they keep on saying, no, you're not who you say you are. You're not who you say you are.
Yeah.
But she's like, no, but I am who I say I am. And we as the audience, we see her falling in love with Farah, so we know that she is who she says she is. But I think when you're in these spaces, when it's just the way it happens, and I think she has to get to a place where she, for herself, understands that it doesn't matter how loudly I shout that I'm gay. It may never change the way the immigration system sees me.
Yeah.
So how do I take control of my situation for myself, and what can I do for me? And I think that's what Farah teaches her, is sometimes you have to stop thinking about what other people think of you or want from you, and you got to think about, what do I need and what do I want? And that's sort of her journey ultimately. Like she finds her voice. And also I think in order to find that voice, she has to face what happened to her and her past. And so again, like, you know, I had to go through loads of therapy to be like, okay, not I'm healed, but like understand what happened through my process and how I viewed immigration and what that did to me. And I think when you then understand your trauma and you then understand what you've been through, it's easier for you to make other kinds of decisions. So she sort of has to go through that transition to get to a point where she owns what happens to her. She owns her voice, and she basically becomes a sort of like leader, I guess, at the end. But that's the sort of journey.
Yeah. What was important to you in portraying the queer love story between Farah and Isio?
For me, it was very important that they never say that I'm gay to each other. She says it once to the immigration officer, but that's because it's a legal thing. But across the film, there's nobody else is sort of coming at them for being gay. I think that for me was quite important, because I think sometimes in these kind of stories, there's a coming out, it's hard to be gay, and all these sort of things that usually happen. But I wanted to not have any of that, and to just be, we are watching two people fall in love, and equally have the people around them be like, okay, fine, like you're in love, like then be in love, you know, and make that choice, as opposed to it being, oh, you're gay, it's terrible in here to be gay. Because I think we all know that narrative and we've seen it, and I think this film is about empowering, and it's about just what does it look like when you are just who you are and you're living your life, and that's it. And I think it's also important to have like Black queer love as well on screen, because I think there isn't enough of it for me. And I always say selfishly, the film is also about me wanting to see various kinds of myself. So, you know, it's Black, it's gay, so it's all these different things that I kind of want to go and be like, oh yeah, I can see myself on screen. So it's I don't want to say it's a political statement per se, but it's very much like doing something against what we normally have in certain kinds of queer cinema.
Yeah, very much so. And I felt it was very beautiful that it didn't problematize that kind of relationship, which, I mean, films that do, they do have their place, but it felt very authentic, very lived in, very, you know, there wasn't that much talk or struggle about that. When you look at how you approach the film and the story you told, what would you say, and that's kind of a big question, but what would you say Dreamers has taught you in terms of being a director?
Oh my God, that is a huge question.
Yeah, it's really tough to put your finger on it.
I think, but I think that I've got a few things. I think for me it's compassion. I definitely have more compassion for everyone on set, because it's not easy. I always say, like, whether you're making a bad or a good film, making films are just hard, generally. And I also think that it's very important to have fun on set, regardless of, I mean, we're not saving lives to a large extent. I mean, we are and we're not, but you know, I think what we do is beautiful, but I think it's also important to enjoy it. But I also think that, for me, I want to find different ways in which we can make film. And by that I just mean that it's a very high pressured space, and there's a lot of things happening. And when there are a lot of things happening, you're not always making your best decisions. And I always think, like, does it have to be this way? Can we not just like hold hands and think and? But maybe we can.
Be beautiful.
It would be beautiful, very nice. But I think it's about finding more ways to do that. I think what I loved about being on this set was we did find time to sing. You know, when we yelled cut, there were times where we're getting ready and everyone's like having a good time. But we're still doing the work. But I think that's also about people coming in with that mindset. But I also think it's important to have, I think, for crew, to have spaces in which they can be vocal to say whatever it is that they want to say, whether that be they have ideas to not shut it down. I think it's a collaborative job that we do. And as a director, it's good to know what I want. But it's also nice to have people go, oh, we could do it better. And be open to that. And be like, actually, we could do it better. I think for me, that's something I want to carry along, of just allowing other people's voices in. Because I think, I know we talk about the auteur and everything else, but like, you know, it's one brain. You haven't got all the answers. And I think it's important to let everyone else come in, because that's how we create cinema. I think it's important to have production design tell a story, costume tell a story, and hair and makeup tell a story, and give them space to tell that story alongside you telling your story as a director.
Okay. Thank you so much, Joy, for taking the time. That's
you.
already it for me. And I want to thank you for the film.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the best for the rest of the Berlin Film Festival.
Thank you.
Thank you.